Welcome to this Reconnect China MOOC series on EU-China relations. My name is Bart Dessein and I'm a senior full professor at Ghent University in Belgium. In this session of the EU-China relations series, I will talk about global China. I will more precisely look at how China is behaving on the international scene, seen from a historical perspective. If we look at China's behavior on the global scene from a historical perspective, the first element that we need to address is the question of territorial integrity and unity. And this issue, China's territorial integrity and unity, these problematics go back to the 19th century with the unequal treaties, which later on have been narrated as the beginning of the century of national humiliation. Three more important elements, historical events that have put to the question the issue of territorial integrity and unity are the two world wars and the civil war that followed the Second World War, the civil war between the nationalists and the communists. When we go to the 19th century, then we have to address the problem or the event of the Opium Wars and the problem of opium trade leading to the event of the Opium War. Actually, there were two Opium Wars. The first of them was the British Empire against China. And this was the first time in its history that China was confronted with a dominant, economically dominant and militarily dominant Europe. Opium trade was a big problem, especially in the south of China. And when Lin Zexu, whom you see here in the statue, when Lin Zexu confiscated the opium reserves in the south of China, this was the event that triggered the beginning of the First Opium War. The First Opium War that was for the first time, or that resulted in the peace treaty of Nanjing, which stipulated that parts of Chinese territory would become under the jurisdiction of the British Empire, and later on also other European countries signed or had China sign similar so-called unequal treaties. And here, for instance, you see a colonial building in Hong Kong built by the British. Hong Kong was one of these territories that were given to England, to the British Empire after the Opium War. Chinese history of the 19th century was further full of revolts and uprisings. And when eventually the last empire of the Qing dynasty came to an end in 1911 through one of these uprisings, then the Republic of China was proclaimed. Republic of China that in 1917 decided to join World War I. Now, lots of discussions, lots of analysis have been made on the precise reason why China decided, the then Chinese government of the Republic of China decided to participate in World War I. One of the hypotheses, and this is a very probable hypothesis, is that China decided to do so because they were convinced that after the war, when then there would be a new peace treaty, that then the territorial concessions that China had been forced to give in the context of these unequal treaties, that these territories would be given back to China, and that participation in World War I would be the instrument to indeed restore China's territorial integrity. Alas for China, this did not happen in the Versailles Peace Treaty. This, or the territories Shandong, or in Shandong, that were belonging to European powers, were transmitted to Japan. And this led to a very important anti-Japanese movement, which we know as the May 4th movement, and can be seen actually as a part of the element that would in the 30s then lead to in Japanese in Japan invaded parts of northeast and eastern China, why this then led to the combined forces in the so-called United Front, the combined forces of the communists and the nationalists against Japan. When World War II comes to an end, then the civil war ensues. The communists and the nationalists are fighting against each other. In 1949, the Communist Party of China, in the person of Mao Zedong, declares the establishment of the People's Republic of China, that is on the mainland, because there was still the part of China, of the imperial heritage of China on the island of Taiwan, and some islands in the Taiwan Strait and in the South China Sea that remained under control of the nationalist government, the nationalist government that had been established in the whole of China in 1927. And so that means that also with the end of the Civil War in 1949, the territorial integrity of China was still put to the question, because, as I just said, the Republic of China continued to govern or to exist on the island of Taiwan and some islands, while on the mainland the Communist Party of China ruled over the People's Republic of China. And this also explains why to this day the issue of Taiwan is labeled as one of the core issues of China's territorial integrity in Chinese politics. In the post-war period, this territorial question, the question of China's territorial integrity, was then linked up with the issue of international political recognition. That is, international political recognition of either the People's Republic of China or the Republic of China on Taiwan and some outlying islands as the true inheritors of the imperial rule. In the context of the Cold War, in the post-war context, the People's Republic of China is forming an alliance with the Soviet Union, and this is an agreement signed in 1950, the Sino-Soviet Agreement for Friendship, Alliance, and Mutual Help, in which the Soviet Union assisted China in the build-up of the country after, since the Opium War, after more than 100 years of internal turmoil, wars and civil wars, uprisings and rebellions. A very important element in the further development of this political recognition, again related to the issue of territorial integrity, has been the Korean War, to which I will come in a minute. The relationships with the Soviet Union have led to the third way of economic and political development, China proposing itself as the leader, let's say, of what we would call now the Global South. The Great Leap Forward, which was at the end of the 1950s, has also had a major impact on China's political position, internationally speaking, and will then, in the end, also lead to the People's Republic of China being voted into the United Nations, which implies as much as that the Republic of China was no longer regarded by the majority of the countries in the world as the true inheritor of the imperial period of China. If we go a little bit more into detail, what regards the Korean War, then it is so that in 1950, the situation on the Korean Peninsula was a divided situation. That is to say that the northern part, let's say, of the peninsula was controlled by the Soviet Union, while the southern part by the United States, and that both political entities did not recognize each other's existence. Very much similar to the situation cross-strait with the People's Republic of China and the Republic of China, that as two political entities also both claimed to be the only true inheritors of imperial rule. Now, when the leader of the North Korean Workers' Party, Kim Il-sung, transgresses the 38th parallel, this is considered by the United Nations as an attack to the south, and supported by a resolution of the United Nations Security Council. The American president, Truman, at that moment, dispatches troops to the south to force the North Koreans to retreat. And he also orders the 7th Fleet to neutralize the Taiwan Strait. The latter has to be interpreted in the context that I just mentioned, and that the Republic of China and the People's Republic of China did not recognize each other's existence, and that not forcing Kim Il-sung to retreat, this might inspire Mao Zedong to also incorporate Taiwan into the People's Republic of China. And so to prevent this, there was this order to the 7th Fleet to neutralize the Taiwan Strait, which de facto means that as a result of the Korean War, Taiwan became part of the American zone of influence, and that in this sense the Cold War, one could say, was also expanded into the Korean Peninsula, but also into traditional Chinese territory, or at least the Chinese territory as it was inherited from the last imperial dynasty of the Qing. The relations with the Soviet Union go sour. China and the Soviet Union have made this, or have agreed on the Friendship Treaty in 1950, and Soviet Union is economically supporting the buildup of China, but within China itself, at the end of the 50s, after a period of a gradual collectivization of agriculture and socialization of the industry, the Chinese leadership, Mao Zedong, decides to go faster and quicker with collectivization in the so-called creation of people's communes, which is the main asset, the main characteristic of the Great Leap Forward. And the Great Leap Forward ends in a horrible famine and economic disaster, whereupon the Soviet Union stops the agreement of friendship and mutual help, withdraws its help, and China is antagonized against the Soviet Union. And this explains to a large extent why also China then starts to portray itself as the third way of economic and political development. So a third way different from the American alliances, but also different from the alliances with the Soviet Union. And this adds up to an attitude that was already present before the Great Leap Forward, and that the decolonizing countries in Africa and Asia are supported ideologically. China was very poor, but there was from the Chinese side ideological support for these decolonization movements in Asia, in Latin America, in Africa. And so this, of course, is further enhanced, one could say, in this period of in which China portrays itself as the third way. And if we jump to the contemporary period, one could say that actually the current approach of China towards what we now call the global south can be seen as an extension, as a continuation of a policy that already dates back to the late 50s and the 60s. When the Great Leap Forward ends in a disaster, this gives room within the Chinese leadership for more economically pragmatic political figures to reorient the economy. And this gradual, more pragmatic approach to the economy will also change the attitude, the awareness of the Western world towards China. And this then will lead in the end to, in 1971, to the admission of the People's Republic of China into the United Nations. And there has been a big discussion whether or not both the Republic of China and the People's Republic of China should have their own seats within the United Nations. But this, of course, would mean that two political entities would have to, first of all, recognize each other as an independent political entity, which is not the case. So the net result was that only one of them was admitted into the United Nations, that in 1971, when the People's Republic of China is voted into the United Nations, that then the Republic of China loses its seat. And we see that after that, more and more countries in the world indeed do recognize the People's Republic of China as the only legal inheritor of imperial Chinese rule. This also has then, of course, later on led to the principle or the policy of one China, the one China principle, which is then gradually also changed to the concept of the one China policy. When China is voted into the United Nations and is recognized by an increasing number of nation states as the true inheritor of what we could link back to the true inheritor of imperial China, then this and the United States also does so in 1979. Then this makes an important shift possible within Chinese politics, which I here have phrased as from politics to geopolitics. Once the PRC, the People's Republic of China, was recognized as the true political entity, and the only one, then, of course, this was no more a question, and China could develop other policies and could go into geopolitics and geoeconomics.